You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those birds! Birds! Birds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got us some family here. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Lisa, Brian, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining us is Lisa Gullickson.
Quick, suck it before the venom reaches my heart.
Wife Dork.
I'm a real handsy pervert when it comes to dumplings.
I don't even know what that means.
It means I'm fingering people's dumplings, Darren.
Oh, okay. All right. And also joining us is Brad Gullickson.
And for gosh sake, watch your language.
That's not going away anytime soon.
Mouth Dork.
God damn it. I'd piss on a spark plug if I thought it'd do any good.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith.
Warm. Warmer. Disco.
The Disco Dork. Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. And welcome to the It Modcast podcast.
Yay.
Lovely. That was beautiful.
Lisa,
Magical,
I
Darren.
need to know, where is that quote from?
That quote is from What My Weekend Dork is About.
Oh.
The quote is not mine. I am not the handsy pervert. The handsy pervert is Ali Wong. She was a guest on the show I'm talking about today.
Oh.
Stay tuned.
TBD.
Don't turn the podcast off now.
Well, actually,
Don't.
you know what? Since Brian's not here, but
Yes.
he'll be joining us, ladies and gentlemen, for the review cast, so fear not. Lisa, please explain your weekend dork and that.
So I've had a really stressful week at work, and when I'm stressing, I like to binge Netflix, and I like to either go food, because you guys know I love my Great British Bake Off. I watch that show on a continuous loop. It's my religion now. It's how I find my center, my chi. I think my chi is made of creme anglaise. Or I like to go documentary. And so something bubbled up on my Netflix home screen, something that marries the food and the documentary in a bingeable format, and that is David Chang's docuseries Ugly Deliscious. Yeah. So when this first came up, I actually resisted it because I thought it was going to be like one of those shows where they're like, this is the world's tallest nacho tower, or we're going to eat the world's hottest peppers. And I'm like super not into, challenge, gastronomy. Like that's not my bag for obvious reasons. But then I heard David Chang interviewed on the NPR podcast It's Been a Minute, hosted by Sam Sanders. I just got on that, and it's a really fantastic podcast that catches you up on the news, and they have great interviews. And so he was talking about his series and how it's really about food and how food reflects our culture and how we reflect our culture in food. So a little background on David Chang. He's actually local. He's from Vienna, Virginia.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and he's a second-generation Korean American. His parents immigrated to the United States, and he grew up feeling very self-conscious about his cultural food. Like when he would take kimchi to school, in his like little bag lunch, his friends would make fun of him, or when he, they would come over to his house, they would tell him that his house smelled bad, just because they don't understand, and it made him feel so isolated and left out. And when he went on to go to culinary school, he was taught in the French technique, like a lot of chefs.
Yeah.
But when it came to him making a name for himself, he really stuck to his Asian roots. So he's the dude behind Momofuku. Mm-hmm. So there's a Momofuku in DC. Have you been? I know that Physics, who not only is our rap dork, but is also a big time food dork. He's been.
Oh, I've never heard of that restaurant.
Yeah, no, me neither. Brad and I actually went to a Momofuku in Las Vegas when we visited Las Vegas, and
it
we had
was
some,
tasty.
It was so good. We had some like noodles, and we had some steam buns. It was so good.
Did you punks take pictures? I don't remember.
We did. Yes, they're on Instagram.
They're probably on Brad's Instagram. We know
they're,
I'm not good at the
social
social
media.
needs.
They're on my Instagram.
Oh,
yes.
okay. I need to stop that.
So in each episode of Ugly Delicious, David Chang kind of does a video essay about different types of food and how and just how they relate to the culture. So the first episode is on pizza and the second episode is on tacos, but this isn't like a Food Network show hosted by Mark Summers where they're like, this is the history of tacos and now we're going to go to the taco factory. You know, it's more like having really honest conversations with chefs, with eaters, with food critics, with different types of people on what their food means to them.
Yeah.
So Brad and I actually watched an episode together, and that was the episode 6 about fried chicken and how fried chicken is seen all over the world. So he went to China, he went to Japan, and their interpretation of American fried chicken. But he also talks to, people in Nashville making Nashville hot chicken, people in the South making soul food and making fried chicken. And it also goes into the history of about how fried chicken relates to the African American community and how that can be like a very touchy subject.
Yeah.
How fried chicken was something that you didn't make to feed your family, but something that you made to feed white people so that you could either buy your freedom or make money that way.
Yeah.
And so there wants to be this separation of you don't want to be like an African American person doesn't want to be seen as a fried chicken slinging person, Well, they want to be separated from that identity. So the great thing about David Chang is he's a blunt guy. Like he's not shy about asking the tough questions, and he's talking to people for the most part you feel like he has a relationship with, either through food or just through life. So people are very, very open with him and really want to talk passionately about food. Yeah. So it really becomes a reflection of the culture. He's also like super, like the show is not just, talking heads and people sitting across the table and talking about food. It's very experimental. Like there'll be skits and animated sections in the fried chicken episode. There's an animation of the first time David Chang tried Nashville hot chicken, and he had a horrible time. I actually had to close my eyes and ask Fred to tell me when it was over. But he also has, aside from like all of the chefs he has on, and he has his partner, I think his name is Meehan. I forgot his first name. Oh, oops. You can Google it. He has him on a lot. But he also has on, he seems to be tight with like the comedy community. Yeah. So like Aziz Ansari, who is also a big time foodie, is on there a lot. Clearly this is pre the hashtag #MeToo.
Yeah.
Aziz Ansari thing. But also there's Nick Kroll is on it, Ali Wong, Britta from Community. I should have looked up her name. So like it's nothing that I've really seen before, I think, in a food documentary.
That's cool.
There's something that's just kind of rock and roll about it. I just can't describe it.
Oh, excuse me, Lisa. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off. Is this show
sure.
like the baking show that you watch on Netflix? Is it a show that somewhere it's already like in its second or third season and Netflix is acquiring it, or is it this like an original show?
No, this is
for
a
Netflix?
Netflix original.
Ah, okay.
And it's great because being a Netflix original, like they are not stuck with the confines of like, you know, like for example, like show length.
Yeah.
So with Ugly Delicious, some of the episodes are 52 minutes, some of the episodes are 45 minutes, and some of the episodes are, 48 minutes, like, so they really, it's really feels like they tell their story until the thought is complete.
Yeah.
And you really come away hungry, super hungry, because all of the food looks really good, but also makes you kind of confronts you on what you consider something that you would eat and what you consider, oh, this nourishes my body and this is junk food.
Yeah.
Chicken nuggets do get discussed in the fried chicken.
Absolutely they do. And they have the image, like the video of like the pink jizz or whatever it's called being extruded. So horrible.
Which episode is that so I can skip it?
That's episode 6.
Okay.
There's also a really interesting conversation about Chinese food in America and how there are all of these stigmas with Chinese food, like the idea that a lot of people say that MSG is something that's super bad for you.
Yeah.
And they have like these kinds of weird allergic reactions to MSG. So David Chang gets a bunch of people in a room and they give them like snack foods like Doritos and Cheetos or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he's like, okay, he first has them talk about all their weird MSG reactions. And these people are going like, sometimes, I even walk by a Chinese food place and I get a little nauseous. And then they eat these snacks and he's like, you're eating MSG.
No,
and
you tricked me.
Surprise, you're racist. And they're like, oh no, it's the best. It's the best. But I've been a person who like you see on every Chinese food menu, like no MSG, but maybe we're missing out on something that's actually not as harmful as we think. It's super high in sodium.
I'll have you know that I've never had an issue with MSG.
Me neither. But like, how are you even eating it anymore? It's been so stigmatized.
Give me all the chemicals. Give me all the food.
You down with MSG? Yeah,
I am Galactus.
You down with MSG? Yeah, you know me.
So I highly recommend this show. Peter Meehan is his name. I just scrolled past it. Not a bad person. Still a bad person.
You may or may not be able to tell, but Lisa has become a massive foodie dork in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
She's even just kicked off her own baking blog inspired by the Great British Bake Off.
Yes, you can follow. Thanks for the plug, sweetie.
You're welcome, wife.
You can follow it. It's the Bake Dork blog. wordpress.com. I am still free. What is it called? The website that makes your blog thing.
WordPress?
Yeah, I'm doing it the free version.
Gotcha.
I haven't committed fully. I'm not paying my $4 a month to take that .wordpress.com off. Not until I get some traction, people. So make sure you follow me. Oh, also I have a separate Twitter account at Bake Dork if you want to check that out.
Yay!
But my inaugural blog post is up, and so you can check it out. I'm pretty proud.
It's great.
And the cake I made was great.
It was.
Gosh, I want some food.
It's gone now, Darren. It's gone. I finished it off today.
That's the problem with the Skype apps. You don't get to taste my delicious cakes.
So you said the host is Korean American, correct?
Yeah.
Did they talk about in that fried chicken episode? Did they talk about banchan? Have you ever had banchan?
They talk about.
Are you serious?
He talks about Korean barbecue, and he talks about how like Korean barbecue is something that's kind of becoming more trendy, but it's still not on the level. Like there's not a lot of crossover between American barbecue and Korean barbecue, even though that could potentially be something that's like delicious and amazing. And he sits at a table with a woman who has a Korean restaurant, and she's had a Korean restaurant for a long time, and other Korean Americans, and they just talk really frankly on what it was like to be stigmatized for having weird Korean food, even though Korean food is delicious.
Yeah.
I've been to a Korean barbecue place. It's good. I've had bulgogi.
Bulgogi, yeah. I've been fortunate enough to have some Korean American friends, and they're very gracious and generous with their cooking and their food. Actually, some years ago, this was like in 2001, 2002. I used to, well, even before then, I used to work for this woman she was Korean, and then I actually stayed with her and her husband and her mom, and every night I stayed with them for about a month. I was going through some stuff, and she was really nice. And like every night, she would steam the rice, she would put the seaweed out, and then she would make the kimchi, and it'd either be bulgogi or some other Korean dish, and it was so good, so good. So yeah, Korea.
That sounds amazing.
It's really good, huh? So I'm gonna check that show out. Not right now because I'm starving, and it's just gonna be torturous. But that sounds very interesting. I like the cultural implications, or cultural aspect, and looking into that, and seeing how that relates to the food that we eat every day and may not necessarily think about on a cultural level, like the stigmas that the Korean Americans or the Chinese people have with, in regards to their food.
And it's not coming from like a preachy place or anything. It's coming from a questioning place. And really it's your job as the viewer to kind of come to your own conclusions. I mean, David Chang definitely has his own thoughts. Like, he talks about like he does not like white people making Korean food. He doesn't like he talks about how they had not gone through the kind of crucible that was growing up Korean American, and now that Korean food is like trendy, they're hopping on this train and making Korean food, and how does that make him feel? And I think that is a really important conversation, especially in terms of where, talking about cultural appropriation and when are you being respectful and traditional, and when are you profiting off of someone else's culture? I think because food, you're all about like you taste something, it tastes good to you, you want to make it, and if you're a chef, you want to sell it. Well, is that your right as a chef? It's an interesting question.
Huh. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. You also checked out War Games for the first time at the Alamo Draft House?
I did.
Shall we play a game?
Baby Broderick. So sweet. I really enjoyed that movie. I enjoyed it more than Ready Player One.
That's Ali Sheedy also in there with him, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And so, Brad, how was your week in Dork?
My week in Dork was great. I think, to continue that thought about War Games and Ready Player One, the best thing about Spielberg's new movie for me has been, throwing me down the void of 80s cinema. Last week we talked about Real Genius, and coming from that showing at the Alamo Winchester, I had to rent Daryl. I had to rent Iron Eagle. I had to rent Neverending Story. And The Last Starfighter. And I've just been blitzing through all these films that were just so meaningful to me as a child. And that built up to watching War Games on Wednesday. And that was a delight. And I really appreciated witnessing Lisa's reaction to that film. Those movies, they just make me feel all warm and fuzzy, and it's like returning to the womb.
Yeah.
But what I really wanted to talk about this week was we just got done with AwesomeCon.
Yes.
I didn't.
No.
I was working all weekend. So lame.
Not Lisa, but Darren, Brian, and Brad.
I have to live vicariously through you. It feels wrong.
Yeah, the dude dorks. We all got our chance to hang out in DC and check out AwesomeCon. And it's crazy how big that convention has become. It started in 2013, and since then it's just blown up. Blown up in terms of the amount of guests. Now you have the cast of Boy Meets World there. You have Drax and Yondu there.
Yeah.
You have and Sean Gunn. Don't forget Sean Gunn.
That's right.
Kirk from Gilmore Girls and the Ravagers. It's like the Green Arrow cast is there. It's a massive experience.
Brad,
This year they had John
a
Boyega.
That's right. Did you get to see him?
I got to see him. I didn't take out the bank loan to get the autograph. It was $200 an autograph, and then $200 a photo op.
No.
So that's $400 plus if you wanted the full Boyega experience. But I was able to attend his panel. Sadly, the main reason I was there was because I had my own panel there with Liz Reed from Cuddles and Rage and Emily Sears from Birth, Movies, Death. We were following up our panel from last year about breaking into the publishing world and marketing your own writing. And, it was delightful. But this year, it was 5 o'clock on a Saturday, an hour before the Boyega panel. And people started lining up for Boyega like around 2 in the afternoon. So we didn't have as much of a crowd as we did last year. We had about, 30, 40 people. We had the disco dork there.
Yeah.
That was the most important member. And, Muse Girl, Lisa Bell Roden, she was there.
Hey, Lisa.
Some people from Film Club 3.0 were there and some coworkers. And it was a good time was had by all. But the moment our panel ended, I had to jet to the Boyega panel because I was not going to miss Boyega talking about Star Wars and Pacific Rim. And you know what? That dude was delightful. He had never been to Washington, D.C. before, and this was the first comic book convention he had attended where he was the main attraction. We've seen him at San Diego Comic-Con as part of like the Force Awakens panel, but this was the first time where all eyes were on Boyega, and he really responded well to that adulation. He was very appreciative, and as far as Q&A panels go, I thought he was one of the best recipients. He took the questions and he gave you real answers. When someone asked him what his favorite Star Wars film was, he said The Empire Strikes Back. When the moderator Ash Crossan from Entertainment Tonight asked him, if he wanted to explore other franchises like the superhero genre, he said, well, it would have to be for Marvel because why would you want to do anything else but Marvel?
Yeah.
And he mentioned he was Team Cap, and he geeked out, and some guy in the crowd shouted out, "You got to be Blade!" And his response was, "No, that's Wesley Snipes' character. I want to be something else." And he did say that he had met with Marvel a while back, and he's certainly interested in that. And it's funny, we're recording this Monday evening, but that little back and forth about Marvel and Boyega has spawned a Twitter moment. So it's been really great to see AwesomeCon, reach out into the larger conversation. And DC is going to make a real play for pop culture celebration. And give it a few more years, and it might actually give the New York Comic-Con a run.
If I may, Darren,
yes,
do a little plug for my spouse.
Of course.
Brad did an amazing little speculative article on Film School Rejects, 5 Marvel characters that John Boyega could play.
Yes.
And so you should check that out on Film School Rejects.
I nerded out over that.
It was adorable.
As you should.
So yeah, I don't know. It was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to future awesome cons. And it was a nice little taste of that tingly feeling that occurs during San Diego Comic-Con. I am now prepped for July.
Yes,
it's gonna be so amazing.
If AwesomeCon ends up becoming as big, like you said, Brad, as big as New York Comic-Con and San Diego Comic-Con, I'll tell you what, it will be nice to have an event like that so close that I don't have to spend money on a plane ticket or like a hotel, that I could just attend it and just drive there and just drive home and just drive back or take public transportation. That'd be really convenient.
No kidding.
Agreed. I just metroed in. It was no big deal whatsoever. All I paid was, the food I ate out there.
It's and Sia, you said, as you mentioned, I was there in attendance, and I brought Sia with me as well to give her a little sneak peek at what to expect come July when she joins us for the first time in San Diego. And
I saw your pics. She is so cute, and she's gonna do just fine. She's the freaking coolest.
Yeah, she was. She made me proud. She was pointing out and calling out names and characters left and right, and I couldn't keep up. And I was like, yes, that's right. That's who that person is, and I don't know who that person is. And so she's ready and she's excited, and as am I for San Diego. So yeah, we had a good time.
Yay! What about your weekend, Dork, Darren?
My weekend, Dork, was spent doing classwork, playing video games, and I didn't get to the movies as often as I would like to. I only saw Ready Player One. I still owe you my thoughts on Isle of Dogs. I have to go see that.
Dogs.
Yeah, and so I smashed out a bunch of classwork today, which is going to free me up for tomorrow and Wednesday, actually. So that movie will be watched by my eyeballs before the end of the week, and I will be able to geek out on Wes Anderson's latest film with you shortly, Lisa. So no worries. But I was gonna briefly just mention like the video game that I was playing, but I'm thinking in light of our review cast for Ready Player One, I think I'll talk about why I've been putting so many hours into that game. And I rented it from Redbox on Thursday, this past Thursday. Today is Monday. I have one more person to defeat before at the end of the game, and I beat the game. And it's called Far Cry 5, and Far Cry 5 is the fifth game in this franchise, and these games are open world games, and one of them Far Cry Primal takes place in like the caveman days, and then Far Cry 2 takes place in the present, but I think it's if I'm not mistaken, it's like military themed. Well, Far Cry 5 takes place in Montana, in the Midwest, here in the States. And it takes place in our present day, in our current. It's a riff on our current political climate. They're fictionalized people and towns and stuff like that, but it's a huge open world sandbox. And you have to. There's this guy who, through a religious cult of sorts, is trying to slowly turn these people in this town and get them to follow him, sort of like David Koresh style. But there's the social commentary about the NRA and gun rights and freedom in our Constitution and our First, Second, Third Amendments and all those things. Like all that stuff plays into this game, and you're a sheriff who is supposed to go and apprehend this guy who is, the game starts out, you're given your warrant, your arrest warrant. You're going to go bring this guy in because you've heard he's been causing disruptions in this town. And when you do, your helicopter gets shot down. You go to this town, and it's almost like, it reminds me of kind of like the Wicker Man, in that, you go to this place and you can tell right off the bat things aren't right. Everyone's acting weird. And then, things go tits up, and it's, you're cut off from, you're back up, you're cut off from the rest of the world basically, and you have to firstly not only survive and make it out, but you still have to bring that guy down. And so that's the game. You're this marshal. I'm sorry, you're a U.S. marshal, and you're trying to bring this guy down, and you're stuck in Montana, and you have, when I say a sandbox, I mean the game is huge. Like if you go to the highest point in the game, you see mountain ranges, you see fields, you see forests and trees, and anything you can see, you can get to and go there in that game. And there's wildlife, there's bears running around that'll attack you if you're out in the woods. There's cougars and deer that you accidentally hit because they're crossing the street when you're driving. Like it's always they do a really good job of making this world feel alive and lived in. I mean, there's traffic. You're driving down the street and someone passes you, and as they pass you, a moose walks out into the street and causes an accident with that person. Like just all kind of unscripted, crazy stuff happens in this game. And in relation to Ready Player One, as you'll hear us talk about in the review cast, and the idea of going into a virtual world to escape, not just to escape your reality, but I don't know that I would ever go to Montana. I don't know that I'm not really an outdoorsy type person where I would go into the mountains and sleep in a cabin, or hang out in the woods and go hunting for deer. That's just not my bag. But
doing it on TV is way better.
But within this game, I get some semblance of that type of experience. You could use bow and arrows, you could use rifles and all type of stuff. And these cult people, they're armed and stuff. They take over a police station, so they got guns. So you got to shoot the bad guys. But you can choose to go in quietly and just use a bow and arrow and don't make any noise. You do one mission where you save this where you say there's a famous bear that's a mascot. His name is Cheeseburger, and he escapes, and then you rescue and save him. But then once you do that, he's your sidekick, so you can bring this big ass grizzly bear along with you. The same with a cougar. You get a cougar as a sidekick, and you can have them go. You can have them. You can tag an enemy and have that cougar sneak up on that guy and take that guy out. So there's a bunch of interesting stuff in the game to do. And again, in relation to Ready Player One, I just found myself, being fascinated by, firstly, the open world nature of it and the unscriptedness of things that happen. And you know what I'm going to do? Because the PlayStation, when you play, it records like a security system. It records everything you're doing. And if you want to keep something, you just hit the save button. And your last play session or whatever that recorded, it'll take that and save it on your hard drive. And you can go in and keep the whole thing, or just take out little bite-sized chunks. I'm gonna post like some video of a gameplay session where you could just see like random stuff happening that is unscripted and really cool and interesting and fun. But yeah, so the idea of going somewhere and experiencing something that I wouldn't normally experience in my day-to-day life is one of the things that appeals to me about this type of game in Grand Theft Auto 5. Being able to traverse that huge city in Grand Theft Auto, or go in these backwoods and forests and climb up these mountains in Far Cry 5. It's very interesting in how the technology is able to realize a real world environment and then put you in it and let you do what you want to do. If you see a house, you can go up to that house and you go in that house. It's fully furnished. It looks like someone needs to clean up maybe. And you can go upstairs. There are things in the bedroom. There's an answering machine. If you push the button, there's a message that plays that gives you backstory about the occupants of that house. Like it's really fascinating and interesting. And thinking about all the in Ready Player One, they only hint, like when they're playing games is very surface level arcade style. There's no real depth to the action. They're controlling the car, they're controlling the motorcycle, they're controlling the avatar that's shooting the gun, and that's it. But video games have evolved a lot narratively within the last 5 to 10 years, to the point where it's a lot more than that, and you can do a lot more. And this is just one of those games that gives you many options to do a simple task. And I don't know, I just found it really, just found it really engaging and interesting, and I've been having a blast with it. And so, yeah, that's been my weekend dork outside of, multiple viewings of Ready Player One.
You said you were not going to go into that game, Darren, and then it just took over. You were too excited.
Yes, it did.
I used to be soups into playing The Sims.
You know what?
And I would just make them pee and make love. That's what it was about. Or I like to do this thing where, like, if you bought them an easel and had them paint, you could sell the paintings. So I would get them painting, and then I would take all of the doors out of their house, and they would just have to live off of painting. And then I would have them make out and then get in a fight.
Yeah,
I'm a jealous god.
But see that right there,
and jealous god.
But that right there, the entertainment and the whatever that taps into, that curiosity of us to do stuff.
That I am.
Well, yeah. So when I'm playing Grand Theft Auto 5, I'm in the city, right, and I'm running traffic lights, and I get behind a bunch of cars, and everyone stopped at the stoplight, and I'm just, what, screw this. This is a video game. I'm just going to go through this light and cause an accident just to get to where I'm going, and that happens, right? So Sia, I put on free roam mode, so she's not privy to like the story mode with all the cursing and all the crazy shit that's happening, so she can just free roam around the city. So she's playing it. She comes up to the intersection and she stops, and I say, "Sia, what are you waiting for? Just go." She's like, "No, Daddy, it's a red light. I can't, I don't want to run the red light." But then something clicks within her, and she's like, "You know what? I don't tell her this. Something clicks within her, and she goes, "You know what? I don't have to wait. I'm impatient. I want to go through this light. I'm just going to floor it and gun it." And next thing you know, she's gunning it. And then, if you see a car in the game, whether someone's in it or not, you can go up to it, pull the person out, or break the window, get in the car, and drive it. And so at first, Sia she's apprehensive about doing that because she's a good person. She knows right from wrong, right? But then something in her, there's a curiosity that says, well, in the game, I can do this without recourse, and so she does it. And so now, like what you were saying about, it was The Sims, and there was just something that you find curious about. You know what? What if I just put these people in this room and take the doors out, give them some water, make them have to go pee, but then don't let them go pee because they can't get out of the room? Like I don't know what that is, but video games tap into that for us and allow us to. To do something that we normally wouldn't or couldn't do in real life because we know maybe we shouldn't. I don't know. There's just something interesting and fascinating on a psychological level about what that taps into, and that I find fascinating. But that was my weekend dork. Like I said, Brian will be joining us on the second half of the review cast. But before we jump into that, we got a question from one of our listeners. Zachary. And
he's one of my favorite listeners.
Yay.
Hi, Zachary.
See that, Zachary? And so, of course, as we are, Zachary's obsessing over Avengers Infinity War, and he's excited. And when Zachary's MO is when he sees something and it piques his interest, I mean, he hones in on that, and he will obsess over it, as any good geek should. And his question is, he says it's for any of us. Where do we think the Soul Stone is in Avengers Infinity War? Like, what are our theories about where it is?
I literally just finished watching Doctor Strange, and how the Eye of Agamotto is actually the Time Stone. So it got me thinking. How on Earth we already have the Time Stone. Mm-hmm. We have the Mind Stone with Vision. Mm-hmm. The Space Stone is up in the Cosmic Cube, and we know, Loki at some point is going to hand that over to Thanos. The Power Stone is on Xandar, and we can assume that Thanos is going to bust into the Nova Corps vault and take that. Am I missing a stone? And the Reality Stone is with the Collector theoretically still after the events of the Dark World.
Yeah.
They dropped it off over there. So, I don't know. Like, I don't think at this point the Soul Stone's in Wakanda or on Earth at all. And I kind of hope that's not the case.
Same.
Now that we've got the Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor running around space, I want more space exploration.
I agree.
And, not everything should lead back to Earth every movie.
Yeah, especially with Marvel hinting that, after Avengers 4, a lot of the focus will be on the cosmic, and so I think now would be a good time. I'm sorry?
I think Howard the Duck has it.
I would love Howard the Duck.
I would not be opposed to that. I would not be opposed to that.
Planet?
I wouldn't even be surprised. Brian and I were talking about this the other day. If we don't even get the Soul Stone by the climax of Infinity War.
Yeah.
In the trailer when Thanos is about to crush Captain America's skull, I think the only stones you see in his gauntlet are the Power Stone and the Space Stone.
Yeah.
So, of course, Brian, being the trickster that he is, said, well, they could be playing games with us and they could do some color correction on that trailer.
Yeah.
And he could actually have all 5 stones in that gauntlet. And I was like, no, Marvel, they wouldn't do that before. And then he reminded me that they did just that with Thor's missing eye in the Thor Ragnarok trailers.
That's right.
So, maybe it does end with all the stones in Thanos' gauntlet. But I have a feeling that they won't be finally collected until either the very, very end of Infinity War or not till the next movie.
Let me ask you, Brad. In the comic, when Thanos snaps his fingers and then half of the Marvel universe is gone, does he do so with all the stones, or does he only have...
it doesn't quite go down that way in Infinity Gauntlet. Like, all kinds of nutso stuff happens, but it's not quite like a snap of the fingers. It is, but I don't think it's going to be realized in the same way that you see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And yes, in the Infinity Gauntlet, he gets all 5 gems early on. This idea of a Thanos heist film collecting all the gems, that's something that's been built into the MCU and is something now that the Marvel comic books are building up to in the current continuity with their Infinity Countdown.
Yeah.
There's no way we're going to get the Infinity Gauntlet that we saw in the Jim Starlin comic book and the George Perez art. Yeah. It's just a much wackier and weirder world back then in the early 90s, late 80s.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, as much fun as it is to speculate, I really do appreciate the fact that the Marvel Studios and the Russo brothers are playing a lot of this film very close to the chest, because it makes for some surprises for us as viewers when we go in, and outside of being entertained, I think that's the cherry on top, to go in there and be entertained with something that you didn't see coming and you weren't expecting. And so, I have every faith that Avengers Infinity War will provide that in spades. So, yeah, Zach, I got our tickets, and the only thing left to do is to wait until that fateful day.
Less than a month away. We are in Infinity War April right now. That's crazy.
That is nuts.
I can't believe Brad's MCU articles. We watched Doctor Strange today. His Civil War article just went up last week.
Yeah.
This week.
Jeez. So
14 weeks.
Real quick, how's your Doctor Strange rewatch in light of this leading up to Infinity War and seeing all these other films so close in succession?
I just said this to Lisa before we recorded, but when I saw Doctor Strange in the theater, I wasn't that big of a fan. I was like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And then I caught it on home video.
What?
And I really liked it. And now this is my third time watching my Blu-ray, and I kind of love Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
It's slowly creeping up to top tier MCU material.
Huh. That's awesome. All right.
The CGI, like the mirror dimension and the dark dimension, they don't look as good on my 70-inch TV as they do on IMAX 3D.
Yeah.
But it's still like a Steve Ditko painting come to life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Zach, for that question. Thank you, Brad, for that answer. And thank you, listeners, for listening to this first half.
What about my answer?
Oh.
About Howard the Duck? That was also a really good answer, right, Darren?
That was a great answer. And now that you've put that in my head, I'm going to be kind of disappointed if that doesn't happen. Because that would be awesome.
We definitely need a Howard the Duck movie.
Oh, please. Yes.
With Seth Green playing Howard the Duck?
Yes. Absolutely. I'll take that. After the break, when we come back, we're going to do our review cast for Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One. So stay tuned. And we're back and ready to talk about Ready Player One.
Hooray!
So we have Steven Spielberg's adaptation of, I can't remember his first name. I know his last name's Klein. What's the author's name? Ernest Cline's Ready Player One. I really enjoyed this movie, and I'm excited to talk about it.
You gave it 3.5 stars on Letterboxd.
I did?
For you to bump something, yeah, you did. For you to bump something above a 3, it's got to be really good. To you.
I thought I gave it 4 stars.
Yeah, I saw 4.
Mind blown.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Like last episode, we're going to do our good, bad, ugly format. So we're going to start with you, Brian. Ready Player One. What are your thoughts on the film as pertaining to the good things about it?
Oh, man, the good things. For me, it was really, because I had a little trepidation going into this film, similar to A Wrinkle in Time, as far as like how I was going to feel as far as like the approach to this film, and were they going to be able to really kind of convey like that sense of wonder and magic and adventure. A lot of people talking about Steven Spielberg, and will he be able to have that magic back that he's had in the 80s and 90s. And I got to say, like, for me, that first act of the film, that the opening of that movie was just absolutely fantastic. I mean, when you're getting into what's his name, Wade Watts, and you have his voiceover really kind of explaining the Oasis, and we get right into the Oasis at the beginning of the film. There's a short little introduction to really just kind of set up the world and where we are in this world, and then we're right into the Oasis. And once we get in there and get introduced to the characters and the avatars of the characters, and we get into that first race, what you explained as far as what happened to Halliday, and the idea of these Easter eggs to really be able to become kind of the owner of the Oasis. It's pretty thrilling when you see the chase for that first Easter egg, and I just got enamored with just all the different Easter eggs and all the different references that we get to all these different pop culture movies, video games, everything there. It was just a feast. We'll get into a little bit more of the stuff. I mean, I think some of it could have been a little overload, but I gotta say, just for me, as far as like my gateway into this world, I think that first act and that opening race is just absolutely thrilling, and it really made me kind of enjoy everything else that was to come the rest of the film.
Okay, wife Dork.
Yes.
Yes.
I really enjoy, like, it is fun, all of the dense Easter eggs in this movie. For me, the highlight of this film, in terms of like what I would put as like the best thing in this movie, is that scene in the Overlook Hotel in
Oh
The
my
Shining.
God.
That whole scene, I was laughing so hard.
It was awesome.
And
yeah.
With H going from room to room, and I knew the reveal of H being a girl, and being Lena, not just any girl, but being played by Lena Waithe, and how they're playing with like her gender identity and all of that stuff, and having the scene in the room where she's like with the woman.
Yes.
And she's going to like, she's like, I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to kiss this beautiful woman, and the play with gender identity there. And then of course, it's the Shining house. So it gets horrible right away. I thought that was like a wonderful use of this reference format they were creating in this film. Also, I think that in terms of set pieces, like I read the original Ernest Cline book while I was at the beach over the summer, and I had my issues with the book, but I thought taking so the book also has the 3 keys and the 3, and like how you find those 3 keys, and I thought that they kind of punched them up for the movie to make them much more fun, much more dynamic, much more cinematic.
Yeah.
Like the first key challenge in the book is like Parzival all by himself just playing a video game again and again and again. Like that doesn't make like a great scene in a movie.
Yeah.
But in the movie, it's like this fantastic race, and there's like the King Kong and the T-Rex from Jurassic Park, and he's driving the DeLorean, and you see the freaking Mach 5 from Speed Racer and all of that stuff, and Christine, like all of that is just like super fun and dynamic. So I thought that was fun.
Brad.
Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts on the good of Ready Player One?
It is a weird experience watching a film like this where, you'll see a flash of the Battletoads, or for a split second, Spawn will run by you.
Yes.
And it does send like this extreme amount of pleasure throughout your body. This Where's Waldo environment. All the things you once loved are here and on display. And if you have the right crowd, we're all high-fiving over, the Gundam showing up. And like that Shining room, I mean, that was such a wild experience. When H, as an orc, wanders over to the elevators, she's like, oh, maybe we could take the elevator on up. You're like, no, blood's coming.
Yeah.
Like that anticipatory like tingle is truly exciting. And you can't help but strap a giant smile across your face through everything you're experiencing with Wade Watts in the Oasis.
I agree. When they stepped through that portal and they walked into at the top of the staircase inside the Overlook Hotel, I was, from that moment on, through that sequence that Lisa's talking about, I was gobsmacked. I was thinking, is this shot the actual the shot from The Shining, and they CGI'd the characters into this shot? Because it was such a faithful and accurate recreation. I mean, it was the same hotel from The Shining, and it was just amazing to me. I did not have that moment spoiled for me, that sequence. So when it came, I was awestruck, and like you said, Brett, I had a smile. Well, the smile was plastered on my face from the opening race of the film all the way to the end. But on this moment, I was just in awe of how not only as being a pop culture reference in a movie, but how they utilize that pop culture reference for the narrative and to propel this scene forward. Instead of having Wade just play a video game by himself, let's have this or however he's done the challenge in the book. Let's have it be
in the book. So like if you were to do like what was the equal thing in the book?
Yeah.
In the book, Wade had to play the Matthew Broderick role in War Games. Like, and he had to say it. He had to say the lines perfectly, and he got extra points for perfect inflection. It's a total like nerd fantasy. This dork ability to like, we start every episode with quotes, and we like to put a little flair in it to make it sound like the original quote. Like it's like such like nerd cachet to be able to quote a movie and do the inflection just perfectly. So in the book, that's what it was. But I think the looking for clues in the hotel and interacting with the blood and having a character like H who doesn't know the movie there. I thought that was so much more fun than
Absolutely.
just watching Ty Sheridan play Matthew Broderick playing War Games.
War Games. I agree. What else is that all you got for the good, Brad, or is there some other stuff you want to touch upon?
I mean, that for me, that was the entire value of the film.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for me, as far as the good, the Greatest American Hero logo on the side of Wade's virtual reality visor, the Thundercats belt buckle, Spike Spiegel's ship from Cowboy Bebop, the miniature version on H's table. But if you look in the background and down the hangar on the right, the actual full-size model he's building. If you look across from Spike Spiegel's ship in the hangar on the left, Ed 209 is down there. Closer to you, next to Ed 209, is the Winnebago from Spaceballs, the War of the Worlds ship, and the sound effect that IROC steps out of. The Mach 5 that you see in the trailer, the Interceptor from Mad Max, the A-Team van, the characters from the Injustice video games, Supergirl, Harley Quinn, Blue Beetle, Deathstroke, the Street Fighter characters, Ryu, Sagat, Chun-Li, Blanca, the Mortal Kombat characters, Goro, the Chestburster coming out and splitting Goro up the middle, Duke Nukem, Lara Croft, the Ninja Turtles, Hello Kitty, in the end of the movie, the friggin' Voltron lion. Also a shit. The Cyclops from the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, showing some Ray Harryhausen love. Skeletor from He-Man. The Perseus' shield from Clash of the Titans that he uses the reflection to chop Medusa's head off. The glaive from Krull that Artemis throws to cut Irok's hand off. The Gears of War Lancer. The pulse rifle from Aliens. The holy hand grenade from Monty Python. Judge Dredd's Peacekeeper that Wade uses, the Borderlands reference, the Gremlins box that force field globe was in, and Godzilla's theme that's playing when friggin' Sorrento transforms into Mechagodzilla and is having a fight with a Gundam. That moment happened in the movie, and I don't know that I've had an emotional geek out experience in a film quite like this, because it was the culmination of all those things that I just mentioned and all the things that Brian mentioned, everything Lisa's talking about, and everything that you're talking about, Brad, and then to see Mechagodzilla fighting a Gundam in the same movie, a Gundam that just dropped out of the Firefly ship, by the way. I lost my geek mind. I don't know what it is about the things that they're tapping into in this film.
I have a theory. Can I propose a theory?
Please, yeah.
So I wrote a review for After Movie Diner. My big boss, John Cross, has been under the weather. And so it hasn't been posted yet, but I'm going to give you guys a sneak preview to my theory about what about Ready Player One appeals to us so hard. Like, to me, I think it's like evolutionary. Like, when you see something you recognize, like something, alarms go off in your brain, and your brain just like floods with all of these happy endorphins that make you like go like, yay, I know this. And I think that it comes from like back with our ancient ancestors and like wandering the plains looking for food, you know, like when you've been walking in circles forever and you see like, and you're lost and you see like, oh my God, that's our tree. We've made it back home. Or like, oh, I know that bush. We can eat those berries. Or you see, you know, like you get separated from your group, and then, oh, you see, you know, somebody else from your tribe or whatever, and you go like, hooray. Like, so like when your brain recognizes something, like things go off in your brain that say, you know, like this is safe, or like I belong here, or whatever. So now like, so I think that it's built into like our survival, that when you recognize something and it's something that's safe, it makes you feel happy, you know? And so seeing all of these nerd things that we identify with ourselves, like seeing a Mad Ball like from the 80s, or seeing the Serenity, or seeing, oh my God, he's wearing the Buck Banzai suit or whatever. You see that and you go, oh my God, that belongs to me. This is a safe space for me. Now, so my concern for the movie, if we're ready to transition into concerns, maybe we're not.
One more thing. Well, two more things.
Okay.
I love the meta of Ben Mendelsohn mentioning the Millennium Falcon, seeing as how he was in Star Wars Rogue One. I thought that was pretty cool. And I thought that, you know, I thought Ty Sheridan and Olivia Cook were fine. I mean, they were cute together, and I like H. I like the reveal of H, and how earlier in the movie when Wade is saying, "Yo, I think I love this girl," and he's like, "Dude, you don't even know who this person is. You're in love with her avatar." The real person behind the voice or this character that you see that might not even be a girl. It could be a guy. You don't know. And so I like how that was really pertaining to H. And I like the idea of, you know, knowing someone, being friends with someone online through video games because you clan up and partner up, but never having met them in real life. I've made friendships from my Xbox 360 days where I go on Xbox Live faithfully every night to play Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and meeting these people to clan up and say, this is my group, let's go in and let's just play this game for like 6 hours straight, and it becoming a regular thing, and then having conversations between matches and getting to know these people and just being friends, like that. All those things spoke to me. Everything in this movie, just about everything in this movie, conceptually and thematically spoke to me. I've talked about on the podcast, you know, when I have weeks in Dorks when I'm playing my VR games and virtual reality. So all that stuff is speaking to me. That's what I do from time to time. I'll go in a virtual world and become engulfed in it and allow myself to, you know, let my imagination run free and play whatever game I'm playing. So all that stuff spoke to me as well. And to go back to your point, Lisa, about your thoughts on what it is that connect or that thing that it's the nerve that it's touching upon that's hitting us. I would also add, and I've had this thought before, and I think I even told Brad, it's seeing all these things from my childhood, and they're all firstly in one place. It's the equivalent of the first time you see the Avengers all together on screen together, because you know it's an amazing thing. So, but all these things from my childhood, firstly all on screen together, and some of them realized for the first time in live action. But it's the fact that there are people out there who are using these things to save the day. They're fighting the good fight, and the fate of the world or the fate of the Oasis rests on my childhood. And so it validates the things that I love, and it's done in a way that it's super entertaining. And so I just felt, I don't know, like I just felt like, things that I had long forgotten and disposed of, or because I just moved on, like the Spaceball ship. Like I never in a million years did I think if I saw the Spaceball ship on screen again would it put a smile on my face. But it did. And I don't know, like it just, the things that I hold dear were integral to, the story and saving the day in the movie. And so I just felt like, yes, my childhood wins. And
there is something that feels like impossible about it, like the fact that we're adults, and we know about licensing, and we understand that licensing costs money, and to pull things from all of these places is not free, and so like the idea of having all of these things together to us just felt impossible. But like when you're a kid and you're looking in your toy box, like, your My Little Pony, your G.I. Joe is riding a My Little Pony, and then your Transformer lives next door, and, like, whatever, your cat, like, your Cabbage Patch Kids. There weren't a lot of Cabbage Patch Kids in Ready Player One, but whatever. Yeah. So, so just to have everything, like, spilled out on the screen like a toy box there was something kind of childlike about it. Yep. Playful.
And it's unique. We had this, I can't remember when there's been a movie like that before. But yeah, and I felt the last thing that I want to touch upon as far as the good before we get into the bad is, for me, earlier on before the movie came out, I would hear people say, is the movie just going to be pop culture references? And there was their concern. And for me, that was a small concern in the back of my mind as well. But a part of me was frustrated in that, I only got a glimpse of these one things, but I felt like it was done. They found the perfect marriage of having these things in there, but not having them in there to the point where it's a distraction away from the story that they're trying to tell in regards to Mark Rylance' character and Wade and his discovery of the keys and the Easter egg and stuff like that. And that's another thing. Mark Rylance' performance, I really enjoyed him in this film. I thought he made Holiday a very interesting character, and I enjoyed his performances and seeing him in his friendship with Simon Pegg, which I didn't even know Simon Pegg was in the movie until I saw the movie.
Me neither.
So that
yeah,
was
I
cool.
Definitely agree with you. I thought Rylance is great. I love him in everything.
Yeah.
And this is the third time I think Spielberg has worked with him. He's the BFG, and then he was in Bridge of Spies, and I've enjoyed him in all three of those performances, even if I thought the BFG was garbage.
Yeah, I just enjoyed the type of I just enjoy the texture that he added to that character with his mannerisms and his little idiosyncrasies. The first time you see him, one of the first times you see him, he's sitting. They're having it's like a panel or a demonstration, and his character Holiday is sitting off to the left, and everyone is sitting in the audience in the chairs, and he looks like he's somewhere else. He's not. I don't know if he's lost in his head and his thoughts, or if he's just not into this part of it, and he would just rather be showing it, which is what he says when he stands up. Oh, instead of talking about it, let me show you what the Oasis is. So just seeing his performance and the characteristics that he gave Holiday, I found enjoyable, and I like watching him.
Also, he gave me a great idea for my funeral. I also will be buried in Star Trek Enterprise Torpedo.
But there is like the underlying story. We can't get lost the fact that like the character of Halliday and retreating into this Anorak character where he was all powerful. All of this like nerd shit that he was into was just a way that he created distance between himself and other people. And because, he created this, like thing where it's just like, well, I have my, like, instead of going dancing with a girl, he's watching movies. Like he's kind of like he's kind of like a warning for all of these. Like if you make this nerd shit the first thing in your life, you're going to miss out on these relationships.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm just like, well, like in my life, I found the exact opposite true. Like, the nerd shit has opened me up to communities, but he really used it as a
safety,
as a like kind of like a safety blanket, like an escape, as opposed to like a place to be welcome or to welcome other people.
Yeah. All right. Now let's get into the bads, starting with Brian.
I guess I don't know. For me, it would probably be going to what you just spoke to, Darren, as far as like my concerns going into the film. Dealing with the Oasis, I thought that it would be a little difficult because that was my concern too, as far as it being too many like pop culture references and whatnot, and will I be able to connect with the characters and the story that they're actually trying to tell? And that was really one of my main concerns. But I found that when the movie started off, that going into the Oasis and really getting connected to the avatars and into that world of the Oasis was really kind of like my gateway into getting drawn into the story, into the characters. But with that being said, I think the way Spielberg was trying to kind of bounce back and forth between the real world and the Oasis, I kind of found some of the more live action stuff to kind of be a little stale. I mean, I like Ty Sheridan, I like Olivia Cook, and for the longest time watching that movie, like her face looked so familiar. And I was like, I've seen her somewhere before recently. And it's so funny because I did just see her recently because I saw Thoroughbreds a couple of weeks before.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I remember she was in Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. So I was like, something about her, like her voice and her look just sounds so familiar. I think I've seen her recently. And I was like, oh, shit, that's right. She was in Thoroughbreds and Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. But,
also in The Signal.
The Signal.
Yeah, a classic.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that movie. I know of the movie, but
it's an It-Mod classic, Brian. We interviewed the writer of The Signal in our first year of this podcast.
Yeah, I
remember. Go back. Listen to that episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's awesome. I really like her, and I liked her storyline, and like you were saying, Darren, like the whole idea. With Parsifal falling in love with Artemis, but then, especially when he tells her in that disco club scene, which is still a fantastic scene as well.
Oh,
yeah, but she turns him away because she has a mission of what she's going for as far as like trying to stop IOI and Ben Mendelsohn's character and whatnot and this whole resistance. But when we got to some of the real world stuff, it just didn't really hit as hard as I wanted it to, as opposed to a lot of the stuff in the Oasis. And also speaking to that as well, and I know this is kind of like a tired observation that a lot of people make, but I do think it is worth pointing out that with Spielberg, a lot of people say that he kind of does. He doesn't really stick his landings, and he kind of overstays his welcome in the third act. I think the movie does run a bit long in that third act. Now, with that being said, I don't know actually. I've only seen the movie once. I don't know what I would cut out of it because I did enjoy a lot of what I was seeing, but I did start to kind of grow a little wary towards the end of the film and felt like some of it could have been shaved off a little bit. And I know, Spielberg, he's really big on those happy endings, and he does tend to stay over a little longer than probably where he needs to kind of cut out. But it did just feel a bit long to me.
All right, Lisa.
To me, I was kind of underwhelmed with the whole, with the actual story part of the movie. Like, if you were to take away all of the references, it's another like Chosen One story where there's one person who's destined to win. So because they're the star of the show. And so I thought that all of the solutions came too easy to Wade Watts. Like, I felt like that when you want to create suspense for a main character, they have to have a few more failures and they have to have a few more flaws to be an interesting character. And I think that when you're condensing a book into a movie, you don't have that kind of time to meditate on the dynamicness of your character. But there really was no downside for Wade. Like, he won the game. Nobody was jealous.
His aunt died. She blew up into pieces.
He really was relieved about that. He seemed kind of down with losing his only living family. Like, I thought that it just came too easy to him. And the fact that, like, the other characters, the high five, like, they were his competitors. And when it came down to it, they were all a little bit too willing to just give up so that somebody, a good guy won, instead of wanting this for themselves. For example, like, Brian, you talked about, like, how Artemis has her mission, but her mission was also getting the egg over even defeating IOI. It was to win the game. She was a gunter just like Parzival. And the fact that, like, she was just like, well, as long as one of us wins, everything's going to be fine. The resistance thing is not something that was in the book. And I think that it really did slow down the movie, because then you're bogged down with, like, all of this stuff is going on outside of the oasis. There's this whole utopia, or dystopia, but it's just kind of nondescript. You get this sense of, okay, there seems to be some kind of class disparity. Like, Wade is living in the stacks. We don't know how, like, there must be some kind of overpopulation, but you really don't understand why this world is a place where people really have to escape from. And what about IOI is so evil, other than just this kind of just like a nondescript evil corporation? Like, you don't really understand their motivations. I would have liked to get into the dystopia a little bit more, create some more roadblocks and challenges for Wade, so that we really see him struggle to win. And then also, when he wins, it has to cost something, like, his, I don't know, friendships or something. Everything just turned out just too great for him.
Yeah, I mean, for me, outside of the joys of the references, the film offered very little, and I really disliked the leads of the story. I think Ty Sheridan and Olivia Cooke are perfectly wonderful actors, but their stories, their characters, I found to be completely uninteresting. To Brian's point, and to Lisa's point, outside of the Oasis, that actual world beyond the set of the stacks, I didn't really understand at all. And when cops showed up at the end, I was like, well, where the hell were they before? It is such a basic hero's journey story, and it was incredibly easy for him that I just never engaged with the actual plot. But when Chucky showed up, damn, I loved that,
Yeah, that was great.
When Mechagodzilla sequence happens, I'm like cheering with just how amazing this is. But I think about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is a film that does a very similar thing, where it blends the worlds of Disney and Looney Tunes and, the Schmooze and all and Betty Boop, and turns it in, and then it takes like the Chinatown plot and turns it into this crazy noir. And Eddie Valiant in Who Framed Roger Rabbit as this like disgusting, horrible human being who learns to accept humans again in the wake of his partner's death because of this ridiculous cartoon creation. And none of that depth I found in Ready Player One. That was what, like, that was my big takeaway. Is it's super cool, but kind of a shallow experience.
I see this as a trend throughout YA fiction, and I feel like,
it was super Hunger Games.
I think that there's this attitude where, a viewer or a reader puts themselves in the place of the main character, whomever the main character is. And so to see that main character fail will somehow affect the ego of the reader or the watcher. But the thing is, everybody can identify with failing. We're all failing all of the time. So to watch someone, make a decision that costs them a friend, or, get last place in a competition, or get second place in their life goals. We all had dreams for ourselves as children, and we've all, fallen short in one way or another. I would love to see that projected in a film.
Yeah.
Even if somebody like a bad guy got the key first. Every key was gotten by the top 5 first. And it wasn't even that way in the book. You know what I mean? Like, IOI was a real competitor. And there were other competitors that made Wade Watts winning at least seem to be in peril in one point or another.
Yeah.
So it goes back to that theme of make it hard.
Well, and you were talking about Halliday in the good segment about how his character whenever he faced a real challenge outside of the Oasis, he retreated from it. Like, he never fought for himself in the real world the way that he did as Anarok. And when you get to the ending of this movie, the message that Wade gets from Halliday is, we need to take off Tuesdays and Thursdays, okay? So we can, kiss on the couch with Olivia Cook.
Yeah.
And I felt like the film never had enough of a conversation with, I don't want to come away from Ready Player One and go, you know what, all this nerd shit I've been collecting in the Dork Cave, the Hulkbusters and the Kung Fu Panda figurines that I have surrounding me right now, that's a negative and a drain on my life. But I want the film to pose the question of the pros and cons of this lifestyle. And if we truly believe that the geek lifestyle is a wonderful and beautiful thing, we need to show why. And we need to show that community and the relationships of the high five in a much more honest setting.
Or also engaging with the world through an avatar, through this false self. So I hate to be the in the book person, but I am. So in the book, Wade starts out the book as being a very, by standard convention, unattractive person. He's a person who sits around, plays video games, eats junk food all day. He's in poor health. He's not in shape. He is greasy. You know what I mean? He and then this avatar that he puts forward to the world is so much more beautiful than him. He has this kind of jealousy relationship with his avatar. In the real world, he's just so extraordinarily average and unhappy with himself. But when he escapes into Parzival, all of a sudden he's this attractive person, and he's more quick-witted, he's more confident. I think that that's something with, anonymous internet culture today, people can really get something from. Or even the idea of, what if Artemis wasn't Olivia Cook? What if Artemis really was a dude named Chuck?
Yeah, I think Ready Player One plays lip service to that, and I'm happy enough that it does that. But I think and Spielberg's probably not the guy to do it, but I think there is a much larger debate and a much harsher reality to be explored with these concepts.
And I think that for all of the, like, a lot of the complaints I'm having about the movie about things being too easy for Wade and all that stuff was in the book, but there was more of this discussion of what is this dystopia, what has created this class system, what has created like this lack of interaction with real life, and then like why does Wade need to escape? He's escaping himself. He's escaping, living in poverty. He's escaping poor self-esteem, and I think that is something.
And an abusive relationship with his.
Yeah, with his family.
Not uncle.
Yeah.
Who was the bad guy in Hurricane Heist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for me, I'm at an interesting place with the film right now. After having seen it like 3 times, and I would have to come back at a later time to give my true bad points on the film, because I find it so entertaining that all the points that you all made, none of those things stuck out to me. I have to get to that part where I'm like, okay, the shine of seeing a Gundam fight Mechagodzilla, or seeing Battletoads running next to the characters from Overwatch. Okay, Darren, it's not new anymore. It's not, so now I can just focus on everything else that's in the movie, and all the points that you all brought up. But right now, like, I'm not there. Like, as far as Wade and what you were saying, Lisa, about things being too easy for him, and then not having a challenge. Yeah, I can see that criticism, and a lot of stories, and most stories, that you do want that. And I've referenced this quality about heroes when we talked about other films, where I say, you want your character to go through something so he can rise up from it, because seeing someone go through adversity and rise up from it, that's, we can pull enjoyment and inspiration from that, and it makes a better hero. I get that, and I agree to that. But for this film, when I was looking at Wade, and by extension Percival, his avatar, for me it felt like everything, the reason why I was invested in that character, because it felt like the nerd, the gamer who spent his time, playing games and being good at it. I mean, to be that good, he's had to lose and die 1,000,000 times over in all the games he's played. And going through that loss and playing a game over and over and over and over again, and I'm speaking from the perspective as a self-proclaimed gamer. My week in Dork was spent playing games. You lose over and over, and like, shit. But then you start getting better. You start recognizing patterns. You start seeing things. You say, well, I obviously this isn't the way to do it. So let me take this alternate route. Obviously this isn't the way to kill this guy. So let me try a different weapon. You become better at the game and become stronger as a gamer through your failures. And I feel like the reason why things became so good, this is what I was projecting onto Wade. The reason why things became so easy is because he has been doing it so long that he's got that gamer's instinct of, well, okay, let me try it a different way. Like when he does get the 3 keys, or when they do get all the keys at the end, for me it just felt like, all right, all his knowledge as a gamer and his nerddom and all that stuff, like, it paid off. And so I found joy in that. Again, this is because I'm already riding the high of, seeing him drive the DeLorean and racing against Kanada's motorcycle from Akira. So I'm taking that into all his other stuff. So it is affecting, I think, my...
But I think that's inferring a lot. Like, to me, like, back to, like, just, I'm using the book as a way of saying, okay, well, I've seen this aspect of the story done better.
Yeah.
In the book, Wade is not the best.
Yeah.
He's really more like the third best. So So H is still is his best friend, but they have a super competitive relationship.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, he feels inferior to H.
Yeah.
And you do get this, like, you do get the idea that there is like this differentiation of skills
Yeah.
between H and Parzival, but they're really complementary. Like, oh yeah, H is good at doing this separate thing, you know, of building these ships and doing that programming side. And Parzival is better at doing, you know, playing the actual game.
Mm-hmm.
And because he is smarter and has more knowledge. Like, I think it would have been more interesting to see these two characters who are friends be competitive with each other and feel that, like, you know, nerddom one-upmanship of, oh, you know this, well, I know that, you know?
Yeah, but I think ultimately what Ready Player One is a great big hug to the gamer lifestyle, right? Like, it's a massive validation, like rush of feelings, and you do leave the theater, you know, if you are at all akin to this lifestyle yourself, you know, you do feel like, oh man, Steven Spielberg just gave me a great big hug, and that it feels warm, and I say thank you.
Yeah, but I mean, we also, anybody who's like, I'm not a gamer, but I know what it's like to compete and feel competitive, and I know what it's like to have your friends push you and you know, compete with you, and I think that could have been an interesting aspect to the movie, to just create a little texture.
Yeah. And outside of me being so close to having seen the film multiple times and me just being in love with it, I think another thing that is affecting my you know, seeing the flaws that you all see in the film is I haven't read the book yet. So I have no well, they could have did it like that. They could have explored it in the book. So all the stuff that you see and yet what you're doing, Lisa, like, I haven't, once I read the book, that'll probably,
I think you'll enjoy the book. The book has a lot of that same idea of, you know, and it has just as many, if more, of those Easter egg references, and you get a little bit more of like the backstory of, you know, how did this world get created, and how did Wade introduce himself into this world. But that being said, you know, like, Wade has a very easy time. You know, he only loses nasty relatives. He has a very easy time kind of moving through this world and winning the game.
And so, you're not wrong. He does. But, you know, I rented Far Cry on Thursday. I got one more person to kill before I beat the game, and
so maybe just you could not identify with somebody who makes mistakes.
Well, not that. I mean, but I made mistakes. I've died a bunch of times, but like, I'm getting better. Like, every time I know what to do. Like, so I don't know. Like, there's just this inherent. There's just this inherent that the gamer culture that they're talking about. It's kind of like when, I don't know. Like, there are things in the character that he does, and as far as like him winning, like, I can see. I am inferring a lot, like you said, but I can see that I can relate to it. Like, there's some games I'm just good at. Zachary will tell you, like, I'll buy a game, and then 3 days later I've beaten the game, and I'll trade it in at GameStop. Like, some games I'm just really good at, and even if I've never played them before, like, I could just beat games. And so part of me sees myself in Wade in that aspect of him as just, he's just good at freaking games. So there's that. But again,
but like, that's what the film is. Like, the film is directly saying to you, Darren, you know, we get you. This film is for you. It's made for you specifically.
And it is. It really is. It's like when Lisa sees a movie that has musical stuff in it, and they have musical details that I don't know who that opera singer is. I don't know what octave that person is singing at, but Lisa's like, oh, this is just me, because like, you recognize things in there that speak to you, and this movie does that to me. And I can see earlier today I was thinking about Wade as a character because I was thinking, all right, now when I talk about this movie when we record, I don't want to just talk about the references. What am I going to say about the lead character? And in that moment, I rewound the movie in my head and fast forwarded and watched it, and I was like, well, he's all right. He's not that dynamic of a character. I don't know how much stuff I would have say about him, but I just love the overall package and experience of the movie to the point where I don't care. Like I could just look past that. I'm just enjoying the experience of the movie, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm only seeing it in like IMAX 3D. So whenever they're in the Oasis, it is just nuts to me. It's like having my VR headset on. So I don't know, like it's almost like Brad said. This movie was just made for me, and I'm afraid I'm dreading the day like the veneer wears off and the shine wears off, and I start to see like, oh shit, this movie is not good.
You don't have to feel that. You're allowed to enjoy the movie. Like to me, like I have my nitpick things about storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, and those are just priorities of mine, but they don't have to be your priorities.
Oh no,
you can love this fucking movie.
And I do, and I'm going to see it again this week. But we've had discussions about films before, and it's funny because a lot of the standards that I would hold other films to, I'm letting this one get multiple passes on because of all those things that we talked about during the good segment. And it's just, I don't know, sometimes funny. It's funny how some films, speak to us in that way, and we just say, all right, well, I don't care if this movie has no plot, or I don't care if the villain was weak in this movie, or I don't care if the cinematography was shaky or whatever. I just really loved that movie. It just spoke to me, and I'm giving the movie passes because of all those things that, was just a joy to see on the screen, on the big screen. So, but I'm not. That's the thing. Like I can understand like where all of you are coming from, because I don't think you're wrong. Wade, he does win. He doesn't have a loss except for his aunt and her boyfriend, but they make them seem like they're shitty people anyway. So I don't know. Like I see all that. But I just dig that. I just dig that this movie exists. There's a movie with Chucky in it, riding in a DeLorean. Like what the fuck? That's just nuts to me, and I'm glad this movie exists. So yeah, okay. Now the ugly, Brian.
I don't know. I don't think there's anything ugly about the film. Maybe the dystopian Columbus, Ohio. Maybe I don't know.
The stacks.
The stacks, yeah. But nothing I can think of that's ugly about the film.
All right, Lisa.
To me, the thing that I find ugly about the film is just I just feel like it doesn't have that much to say.
Yeah.
In terms of, especially being part of like dystopian science fiction, I think that's a beautiful opportunity to dystopian movies are meant to be a reflection of our present. Like, what if whatever we're doing in 2018 gets spun out till 20, like what if things keep going the way that they're going? Oh God, what a horrible thought. What if things keep going the way that they're going? What's 2045 going to look like?
Yeah.
And what are we going to be doing to survive in 2045? That's really what dystopian science fiction is supposed to touch on. And to me, I just felt like this movie didn't have anything to contribute to that conversation other than, hey, you crazy gamer kids, how about you go outside every once in a while? Yeah. I felt like the character of Artemis was undercut a lot.
Yeah.
So like in the book, shoot me. In the book, she's famous in the context of the Oasis. She has a blog that a bunch of Gunters refer to.
Yeah, she's kind of famous. Like they refer to her
she's running this resistance thing, and she does have an edge.
Yeah, but also like when he first thinks like, oh my gosh, I think this is Artemis. Yeah. There is a sense of celebrity around that avatar.
But I mean, I think that like to me, like the fact that they did have a brief rift in their relationship
In the book?
but then in the movie. Okay. In the book there was a lot of will they, won't they, a lot of competitiveness because she really did want the egg. Mm-hmm. And there were times where, you know, she would get to the key first, and that did happen in the movie as well, but it was much more competitive between them. And when she didn't win, she was still kind of heartbroken. Yeah. And, you know, and to me, I felt like the fact that maybe because they introduced this resistance plot, it kind of took out her as a competitor against Wade. And then to add this thing of sacrificing her like at the last minute so that one thing or another, blah, blah, blah. Like, to me, I just thought that was really lame. Yeah. Also, in the book, the character of H, like, I just think that this is cool. Like a cool little thing. The character of H is a white male. So when the reveal that H is really Helen, an African-American female, there's this conversation of, she talks about how as she was being raised, her mom said, well, you know, if you want to make it in the world, you have to be a white man. Yeah. You know, and then like when it's, you know, and it has that conversation, you know, especially with Wade being at the center of this story, being the white man, and then being the de facto leader of this group. Like, to me, to take, like, I think in a Steven Spielberg movie,
he doesn't want to have those conversations.
Maybe that conversation doesn't want to be had. And I do think that there is a lot of good that comes from, I guess, Helen being this kind of gender non-binary person. Right. But, like, to me, like, you know, like, that's Ernest Cline trying to say something, trying to have, like, a discussion, where I feel like the movie is just a little bit too fluffy. Yeah. And I think that's a little
ugly.
Ugly. A little ugly.
Yeah. I think Spielberg's aim was just to make a popcorn movie, and because there are all those things, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. If there are all those things that you mentioned, and that they're touched upon and they explored it more, I think it would change that movie dramatically, and not in a bad way.
I think that the movie would have more impact and more staying power. Yeah. Like, to me, I feel like, wow, what a fun film Ready Player One was. But we're not going to be talking about it like we're talking about Black Panther. Is it going to be mentioned in the Oscars? Right. You know what I mean? Right. Like, you can have a blockbuster film and really challenge people. And I think that you know, the Black Panther film has proven that in spades, and I think that I think that is going to be a turning point in blockbuster film of trying to have a little bit more substance when it comes to being more than just an action adventure movie, being more than just like a sci-fi movie. Yeah. Like, let's challenge that I think audiences want a little bit more. So I don't think we're going to be talking about Ready Player One next year or even in a month. Yeah. Except for maybe Darren.
Yeah, I will. But I don't know. that conversation may be different. Like, oh man, I see everything you were talking about. This movie is shit.
No, I still liked it. I mean, 3 stars. Yeah. I found it super entertaining. Yeah. But to me, like, it's just a sticking point with me. Yeah. As you can see, because I can't fucking stop talking about it. Shut up, Lisa.
That's okay.
Brad's rolling my eyes. Maybe he should go back to the other room.
I was not rolling my eyes, Lisa.
For my ugly.
What about Brad's ugly?
Oh yeah. I thought that was your ugly. What is your ugly, Brad? Don't say Ben Mendelsohn's veneers.
Yeah, I certainly agree with a lot of what Lisa said, if not everything. The ugly to me is this idea. You know, we've been living in the post MCU universe for 10 years now. Avengers Infinity War is coming. I don't know if you've know that, listeners, but we only talk about it every single episode 6 or 7 times. And for some people, not us, but some people, the shine of seeing the Avengers on screen has worn off. Looking at Captain America standing next to Thor, it's not a big deal to them anymore. And watching Ready Player One, this seems like the culmination of everything you were saying, Darren. Like, oh my God, here's everything I loved in the 80s being validated back to me and saying, you did not waste your life. You're cool. And I wonder, like, after this film, how can that feeling be replicated? Like, where else can you go now with this Where's Waldo geek thrill?
I'll tell you, take everything that I loved in the 90s and the 2000s.
Yeah, see, no. Already, like, watching Ready Player One, I became numb to a lot of that stuff until, like, frickin' Mechagodzilla shows up, right? like it's cool, but I don't have the same feeling that I did when I saw Avengers in 2012.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the impact because our geek culture now is so profitable.
Yeah.
And, for me, I really need more meat on my geek bones going forward.
Yeah.
I need more nourishment. And, I don't think it's necessarily fair for me to say that, look, Ready Player One is just not what I wanted to see done with these ideas. That film is Gamer, guys. For me, Gamer is a superior version of Ready Player One. It goes dark. It goes ugly. It does challenge your love of disappearing into your PlayStation in a way that Ready Player One doesn't. And that's a conversation I'm more interested in because, my brain tends to skew to the darker sides of these ideas. Whereas, like you said, Darren, Steven Spielberg, he wanted to show that he could still do a popcorn movie. For the most part, he succeeded.
Yeah. All right. Oh, yeah.
What's your ugly?
My ugly is... So when the people are out on the streets and they're wearing their VR headsets and they're all looking around, walking around with VR headsets, it doesn't work like VR doesn't work like that. So me being a tech nerd or a tech dork or whatever, all that stuff was rubbing me the wrong way. I'm like, that's not how VR works. Like, what's tracking their hands? Like, how? Like, I just didn't understand that.
By a bus,
huh?
They're gonna get hit by a bus.
Yeah,
like that.
Let me assure you, Darren, it's not like that in the book.
Oh, okay, good. One argument could be there are some headsets like the HTC Vive that has a front-facing camera. So when you're wearing your VR headset, if you come too close to the borders of where the headset is reading your room, your front-facing camera will allow you to see what's in the real world, so you don't bump into something or run into a wall or knock your lamp over or whatever. So, argument could be that they have that, Darren, but at the same time, they're wearing the headsets that look like the ones you stick your cell phone in. So I don't understand how that technology works. But then it's 2045. There could be some advancements, whatever. But the sensible side of me knows that
they would be walking into traffic constantly.
Dying. Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know. So as far as the ugly, I don't know. It's too soon for me right now. Cause
it's all beautiful to you.
I love.
You got stars in your eyes.
I do. Like I had a good time with that movie. But I would like to know if our listeners have differing opinions. Let us know what the good, the bad, and the ugly of Ready Player One are to you if you've seen the film. If not, check it out. It is an entertaining film. It's a good popcorn film, and I had fun with it. And so, Yeah, that's our Ready Player One review cast.
Yeah.
Brian, what do you got coming up this week?
Oh goodness, this week nothing.
Oh, all right.
Oh no.
I'm looking forward to A Quiet Place, which people will know next week will probably be our review cast. So that's one of my most anticipated films of the year, and I've been hearing great things about that film. So definitely looking forward to A Quiet Place. I'll be checking that out this week.
All right, wife Dork.
I'm looking forward to Darren getting off his butt and watching Isle of Dogs. God
Yes.
damn it.
Okay, all right. I gotta make that happen. That will be my weekend dork topic for next recording.
Yes.
Big promise.
Yes.
All right.
Also, I just a life plug. I made Mary Berry's cherry cake from episode 1. Well, but if you're in the UK, it's season 5, episode 1. If you're in the US on Netflix, it's season 1, episode 1, the technical challenge. And I plan on doing more of these technical challenges from Great British Bake Off. And there might be some kind of fun project coming up. So if you want to follow my bacon, then you should follow my new second Twitter handle that I'll probably not tweet from. Terrible Twitter person. And it's @BakeDork. So follow me on @BakeDork, and you can see a picture of my gorgeous Mary Berry cherry cake and maybe my new food scale. Super stoked about that. So yeah.
Are you serious? You really have another Twitter handle? Because it's April Fool's, so you could be tricking me.
I have totally got another Twitter handle. Now ask me if I've tweeted anything from it.
Have you tweeted anything from it?
Not as of this recording. I've had the Twitter handle for like a week, but I haven't tweeted anything. But it is there, and it's gonna have cake on it.
Yeah. All right.
Who doesn't like cake?
Yeah. All right. I'm looking forward to tasting all the goodies. Brad, what do you got coming up this week?
Billy Dass and I are hitting the road to Chattanooga for their film festival on Thursday.
Oh, that's right.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to watching a crap ton of movies.
Yeah. And I'm like Brian and looking forward to A Quiet Place. Also, there's a movie on Netflix called The Titan that I've heard that people say is pretty good, and so looking forward to check that out and see if there's any validity to that. You can find Brian at The Turtle Dork on Twitter, at The Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. Wife Dork is at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd. She is also at Bake Dork. And Brad Gullickson is at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped. And I'm Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on all social medias. That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And until next time.